Hot off the heels of confirming both the existence of the RTX 4000 Super Series and incoming Lovelace price increases over the holidays, I've unfortunately noticed quite a bit of waffling around in the past week when it comes to what's being reported for both stories. And so, while I did want to touch on Intel's earnings and some Threadripper info today, I honestly think the confusion around recent Nvidia rumors needs to be nipped in the butt first. And that's right, after speaking with a handful of people, some directly at Nvidia, I'm now ready to basically confirm the RTX Super Series specs and even its pricing, and therefore put to rest the bogus rumors. But actually, before I do that, I do think it would be worthy to straighten out what's going on with Nvidia's Lovelace pricing over the holiday season, specifically as it relates to recent export controls on AI out of the United States. Now, you see, recently after reporting that Nvidia would be directly raising prices in the US while 4090 stock gets shoved into China, I saw a ton of outlets report that the 4090 actually wasn't being banned all of a sudden, before some of them just suddenly deleted their articles with no explanation. And I think this likely is causing a lot of confusion. And so here is what is going on. Yeah, the 4090 is still technically set to get a ban on November 16th, and if that doesn't happen then, and I'm actually told that there's a chance Nvidia will fight for an extension or to have it exempt even longer than that, well, there's still fear and uncertainty out there around an eventual ban happening, whether it happens then or in the future. And actually, this outcome, one where there is a set ban, but not immediately, but some uncertainty around if it will get an extension, this is probably the worst outcome for gamers hoping for cheaper graphics cards over the holiday season that I've seen circulating online recently. And let me explain why. You see, if there was a harshly regulated export ban on 4090s into China already, then yeah, I mean, still, AIBs would send some 4090s towards China, mark them up a ton for smugglers to then gouge the Chinese market harder on every card they manage to get into the country. That would have still happened to a certain degree. But, if a firm ban was already in place, I am confident AIBs would have been a little more careful about how many they send there, because they don't know how many obstacles may pop up in their way, and they don't know how hard or how many will actually effectively get into there. There'd be a lot more certainty that there would be some roadblocks in their way into selling them into China. However, what's going on right now, this murky thing happening where there is likely to be a ban on November 16th, but Nvidia might fight for extending it, but it's not actually in place yet. Yeah, this is a situation where AIBs know 100% they can get cards into China over the next month, and if they do, they will be sold, but because a ban is almost certainly coming, everyone who's on the fence will just buy the 4090 right away. And this is a situation where I honestly feel like AIBs are kind of incentivized to try to capitalize on the situation. And that means that because AIBs know that they will for sure be able to, they're just not going to send any of their supply to other regions until that ban is in place. And heck, if that ban gets pushed back, whatever, there would still be some uncertainty. People would go, well, maybe they pushed it back, but maybe it will come into place in a week. I should still buy a 4090. And I just think this is pretty much the worst situation for gamers hoping to get high-end cards for a reasonable price over the Christmas holidays. And don't kid yourselves, I did reach out to my sources, many of the same ones I talked to last week, to see if after all of the recent confirmations and back and forth about if the 4090 will be banned or not in China, has anything actually changed? And if I put this on screen, well, the first retail source that was willing to be quoted told me literally nothing has changed this week from what they told me a week ago. New RTX 4090 supply is simply gone for the foreseeable future. Now, a second source here told me that they were told there will not be any 4090 in the channel for an unspecified amount of time. That doesn't mean you will necessarily not be able to find any. There are some already in the United States and Europe, for example, but new ones, they're not coming for weeks, and no end date was given, and this person was told that the prices are being adjusted up for the holidays, like was leaked a week ago, and that those prices have not changed, and this person should not expect to be quoted any cheaper prices for months. Now, a third source here, this person works at Nvidia, really opened up to me for this video. They told me that they believe the price increase will be temporary for the 4090. This isn't forever, but that it is going to be a very real uplift for at least a couple months while AIBs shove as much 4090 stock as possible into China while the getting's good. And that things should go back to normal around when they release the Super Series, and that you can bet they will be building at least one card to firmly avoid these export controls while maximizing performance for the production costs they have. And speaking of the Super Series, I've confirmed already that it sounds like Nvidia, well, definitely not happy about the long-term challenges this may accrue to them in getting high-end products into China. In the short term, they are totally springing to capitalize on a chance to have an excuse to raise RTX 4090 prices during the shopping season. And yeah, I think they are excited that they can do that. But to be honest, to me, it does sound like AIBs are just as much to blame, if not more so, than Nvidia on this one. I'm just being honest. They didn't wait for any marching orders from Nvidia to race all of their 4090 stock into China. They just did it without asking. And to be fair, though, to them, Nvidia immediately then raised prices to their partners if they wanted any 4090 supply over the holiday season that they will be shipping to China. So at the end of the day, Nvidia is definitely capitalizing on it themselves. And the fact is, it's kind of a game of he said, she said, and who's mostly to blame in 4090 prices going up right now. But at the end of the day, Nvidia and their partners are both making extra profits off of it. So I'm not really interested in getting into what percentage of blame goes anywhere. They're both profiting. And yeah, that extra profiting is likely going to make the new Super Series look pretty dang good with its pricing early next year when it gets announced and comes out. And it actually, that pricing on the Super Series, it may be far more aggressive than you all were expecting, and I'm excited to leak it to you today. But first, an ad from a sponsor. This piece of content is sponsored by Factor. Factor is a meal delivery service that makes meeting your nutritional goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep every week. And every meal is created with quality and sustainable ingredients that taste great, with over 27 different meals, 33 different add-on options, and the ability to tweak your plan further so anyone, whether you're keto, calorie-conscious, vegan, gluten-free, doesn't matter, anyone can be happy with their delicious delivery service. And yeah, let Factor take the guesswork out of grocery shopping and meal prep, whether you are busy moving or just have a busy work fall. I tried it. I really did like it. It genuinely tastes great. And even if you use the oven, which I do because I prefer that over using a microwave, it takes 10 minutes or less. Microwave, it's like 5 minutes. Every meal takes the same amount of time, which is almost no time. And yeah, support Moore's Law is Dead by heading to factor75.com at the link below and use code BrokenSilicon50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Using this code helps the channel. Even just clicking on the link helps the channel as well. And I genuinely do like their meals and recommend them. Check out factor75.com today. All right, so if you'll have noticed in the title, the RTX 4080 Super may be the card that's most interesting in this lineup, or if not most interesting, the most aggressively adjusted from its predecessor in the lineup, even though it is almost certainly going to use 8103. And before I show the likely pricing and specs, I do want to outline why rumors about a 4080 Ti 20 gigabyte that uses 8102 really make absolutely no sense and almost certainly are the product of somebody just guessing for clicks because they don't pass the common sense test. Seriously, think about it for 5 seconds. Currently, Nvidia is having issues supplying the RTX 4090 at the current price and is raising prices due to demand. If they have to raise prices on the 4090, why the hell would they make a cheaper version of it? That makes absolutely no sense. And furthermore, there are export controls out there making it, so Nvidia probably can't even sell the 4090 into China. So why would they put out another 8102 card? They wouldn't. They would put out a souped up 8103 card so they can have some high-end offering for the Chinese market next year. Now, someone might then say, what about getting rid of the bad yields of 8102? Well, let's see. The 4090 is already disabled 12% on TSMC's best yielding node in history. It's unlikely that many yields need to be disabled below where the 4090 is. And then remember that the RTX 5000 ATA exists. This thing is an extremely cut down 8102, and it is being sold for $4,000, far more than any 4080 Ti will be sold for. And this is a different situation than all of these weird Navi 31 variants we've seen, because AMD does not as easily sell their Navi 31 professional cards as Nvidia does. If you're Nvidia, making a cheaper offering to the 4090 makes absolutely no sense. You're already raising the price on the 4090 to meet demand, and then, well, you already have RTX 5000 ATA that is cut down even more than the 4090 and is being sold for $4,000. You're not going to make some, $1,400 4080 Ti? It just doesn't make sense. Now, in a recent video, I already speculated on what at least two of the super cards are likely to look like after talking to some contacts at Nvidia. And today I've reached out to far more people, both at Nvidia and connected to Nvidia, and I want to put these quotes on screen to just outline the general gist of what I was told. So, one AIB told me that they cannot entirely confirm what's going to happen with the Super Series, but that they could tell me that they've had hints dropped to them by Nvidia that they should expect some adjustments in the upper mid-range and high-end around the start of 2024. And so I would say, and this person agreed, that would at least confirm the final decisions have not 100% been made yet, but they will certainly involve 8103 and 104. Now, a second source here, one at an AIB as well, told me that they pushed really hard with a contact at Nvidia and was told that Nvidia does not think they need any extra help moving 8102 products, and so we shouldn't expect any adjustments to gaming versions of it, and that they want to take on the 7900 series aggressively and directly. And then, well, a contact at Nvidia really opened up to me in the past few days and told me that, again, the decision hasn't 100% been made yet. And in fact, pricing decisions won't be made until probably like a week before the announcement. But this person knows the general gist of the planning and that it is incredibly likely that the three super cards to be released will be the RTX 4080 Super 16GB, a 4070 Ti Super 16GB, and an RTX 4070 Super 12GB. The 4090 is selling so well that they have to raise prices, so they're not changing that. And then I am also told, kind of surprisingly, that the 4060 that is now drifting below $290, when it drifts below $290, it's selling very well, especially outside the United States. And then the 4060 Ti 16GB that can be found below $450, sometimes I've seen it around $430, that is picking up in sales now, and that people just didn't want it at $500. But a 16GB card that's only a little weaker than a 3070, that apparently, given its efficiency, they are happy to buy it closer to $400. And so they don't think they need to really work on the top or the bottom. I was actually directly told that below the 4070, don't expect any big changes, and also don't expect any changes really on the 4090. And indeed, eventually, in the past day, a couple of Nvidia contacts really opened up far more than I expected, in all honesty, and worked with me on outlining the two likely directions that the Super Series is likely to go in. And I'm going to show you them here. Now, before I do, though, just remember, exact decisions on pricing have not been made. I've only been told the lowest they are considering right now, and then also likely how hard they could push these variants if they really want to. Remember, these variants are almost certainly going to be two 8103 variants, one stronger than the 4080, one weaker than the 4080, and then a new 8104 variant. I was told that that's what they're going to have, and then the only thing to decide over the next months, depending on how holiday sales go, is where to price them at and how hard they should clock them. And if I put this first option on screen, well, This one here is far less interesting than the crazy one I'm about to show you, but I do think it would help Nvidia's position a bit next year. Basically, the idea would be to slot in cards at or a tad above existing pricing and then push all of them harder than that price increase. So if it's not literally a price reduction, it is an improvement in price to performance. And I have to be honest though, if the 4080 really is the worst selling high-end card in Nvidia's history, like I was legitimately recently told it was by an AIB, then I don't actually think this change here will be enough to scare AMD that much. Honestly, all I think AMD would have to do is cement their existing street pricing. Like put the 7900 XTX at $900 and the 7900 XT at around $750, and then I think they could continue to sell relatively well. But here's the thing. I am told that Nvidia is actually considering a lineup far more aggressive than this. And again, I can't promise you that they will go along with this. And in reality, they're likely to choose something that's a little bit of both depending on the card and depending on how each of these products from 80, 103, and 104 sells over the holiday season. But well, let's get to it. This is apparently how aggressive Nvidia is willing to get if they really feel the need to do so. And yeah, I am not kidding. I am directly told, and I was told without hesitation, that $1,000 is a real possibility for the 4080 Super, a card that I was also told is almost certainly getting 24 gigabit per second memory. And then, I mean, think about it. Full 8103 would yield 5% more cores than what the 4080 has now, which doesn't sound like a lot. But in conjunction with around 10% faster memory, and then a TDP that could be 350 watts, 400 watts, or even 420 or 450 watts. Remember, this thing uses the same cooler as the 4090. I honest to God think that they could push this thing at least around 10% faster than the existing 4080. And then, of course, if they drop the price by 20% from 1200 to 1000, yeah, I mean, we're looking at like a 30% increase in price performance, and I think that would be enough to make some waves. And then, again, I directly asked here, I was told that the lower bound for the 4070 Ti Super 16 gigabyte is $800, that there is a serious chance they may drop something based on 8103 at the existing MSRP the 4070 Ti 12 gigabyte is currently selling for, and that if they push it hard enough, they could make that thing within 5% of a 4080. And man, would that really threaten the 7900 XTX then firmly? In fact, I even told one of my contacts at Nvidia that, and I'm not saying this is what I want, right? What I want is all of these cards to be half the price they are, to be clear. But if it was $850 for something that was de facto the performance of a 4080, I think it would sell fine at $849. I don't even think they'd have to go down to $800. And then, yeah, of course, if they want to, they can price the 4070 Super 12 gigabyte at $600 and make it perform almost as well as a 4070 Ti. Remember that effectively they wouldn't need to change the cooler from what they're using now, and really wouldn't cost any extra to make a 4070 Super with more cores enabled. They could just do that, and they already have other pretty bad yield professional variants of 8104 that they could save the worst yields for anyways. And so, yeah, I gotta be honest here on this one. If Nvidia actually did this, if they improved the price to performance of the 4080 by around 30% and basically did a at least 10 to 20% price to performance increase on the 4070 Ti and 4070 replacements, which, remember, I mean, those cards are already selling okay, I'm told. I kind of think they could hit AMD a little hard here. Maybe harder than AMD would know how to respond. I think at a minimum, AMD would be forced to release refreshed versions of their existing Navi 31 products and still probably price them at like $700 and $850 or something. And so I guess we're just going to have to see how aggressive Nvidia wants to get here, but they definitely aren't happy with 4080 sales based on what I'm told. And I'm also told they do not like how well the 7800 XT is selling. They're well aware that people can't keep it in stock at MSRP easily to this day. And yeah, well, I think they could even drop the price of the 4070 to be a little closer to it along with this refresh. Which actually that gets me to my final point. Look, if you're happy to buy a Radeon graphics card right now, which I always think people should consider both AMD and Nvidia, I think despite the fanboy arguments, they are far closer to each other in overall feature sets and performance than people give them enough credit for. But if you're happy to buy an AMD card, I actually don't think you should hesitate to get the 7900 XT or the 7800 XT over this holiday season if you can find them at bottom pricing. Like if you find a 7900 XT at $750 right now, I don't really think that's going to be that different than how the price performance would look with a super card early next year. Probably not. And even if it was a bit better for the super card in months from now, you gamed a whole holiday season while you were on break with a card that was about as good, so you shouldn't feel bad. However, if you are somebody who's allergic to the color red being on your graphics card for some reason, then yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, you should wait for this super refresh. I just gotta say it. Right now, I think the 4080 is still priced horribly, and 4090 pricing adjustments are going to elevate Lovelace pricing over the holiday season. So if you've got a card that can play the games you need it to play right now, I would definitely wait, because it seems obvious that, well, if there's even a chance Nvidia is going to be this aggressive next year, you're not going to want to be someone who bought something like 30 or 40% more expensive than it needed to be now, and you should definitely wait for super. And actually, on that note, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to like it. Please remember to share it so people see this hard work that's out there and get some hopefully helpful advice before they buy something this holiday season. And also, consider joining the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon. If you do, you'll be able to discuss everything in this video with me and other people on the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon Discord. There's thousands of people there who would like to have respectful and reasonable conversations with you about this content. And then additionally, well, you'll get access to die shrinks that no one else gets access to. They're like bonus videos or podcasts that have no ads in them ever, only for patrons. You also get access to Broken Silicon early and ad-free, free questions for loose ends, the ability to ask guest questions. I've actually got another exciting guest that I'm about to announce very soon that you'll be able to submit questions for over the weekend before we record. And besides that, though, I guess no matter what, thank you for watching.